great pleasure to have you with us today. I'm Olga Vitropaki, I'm Professor of Management, and together with my colleague, Suzanne Braun, we're going to facilitate the discussion with Ben and Will. So we're really, really excited. Today, we have the great pleasure to have with us two superstar Durham University alumni. So we have Will Greenwood, MBE, a rugby pro, and integral part of the team of 2003 World Cup winner. And we also have Ben Fennell, who 16 years CEO and now founder of Growth House.
No BE.
No.
Not
yet. You never know. So it's a great pleasure and honor to have you with us today. I think personally, it's always more interesting when people share their personal stories than somebody reading bios, right? So I would like to invite you to tell us a few things about your personal stories and your personal journey, and also the role of Durham University experiences in that journey.
Sure. Well, good morning or good afternoon, everybody. First of all, who actually knows who I am? Right, perfect. So just that allows me to sort of contextualize how far back I'm going to go. A Northern Englishman brought up by school teachers who did an economics degree at Durham University, 91 to 94, graduated, got a job in the city. I was a foreign exchange trader for 2.5 years for HSBC. And then the sport I played, which had always been amateur, Corinthian, had been something we did for fun on a Tuesday and Thursday night after work, and played on a Saturday for no recompense, suddenly overnight turned professional. There'd been a World Cup in 1995 in South Africa. South Africa had won, and Nelson Mandela had given the trophy to Francois Pienaar, and it's not a overstatement to say it. It really united the nation of South Africa, and everybody at home and certainly television executive and sponsor, this is rock star stuff. So it became a professional sport, and then I had to make a decision. Do I continue in the city, or do I become a professional rugby player? And I was actually going to continue in the city. And then I got some wisdom, and we're going to talk a lot about collective wisdom over the course of the next hour, understanding that you need to ask for help, ask for support at key times, to reach out to those closest to you who can offer advice as to what they think or what they're seeing. So you get a different view of the same mountain. And my dad, very simple words, very simple northern, just said, look, I don't want you to be the bloke at the end of the bar, and that's like at the end in the pub, holding a bitter glass in 20 years' time, when this group of young men that you are currently playing with do something special. And you are one of those people in life who say, I could have done that. Ifs, buts, shoulds, woulds. I said, I need you to go find out, dare to fail. So it wasn't really a bet, it was more a timescale. I asked HSBC for a 2-year sabbatical, and I went and joined the roughest, toughest rugby club in England, which was Leicester Tigers. And I decided if I hadn't played for England within 2 years, I would go back and work in the city. So I put a time frame. I mitigated the risk of failure by covering my backside with the job at the back end of it, but also giving me a full opportunity to throw myself all in, all the chips. Here we go find out. I aligned myself with an extraordinary team, a wonderful coach, a leader called Clive Woodward, now Sir Clive Woodward, and we had the most fabulous time going around the world, not winning to begin with, and then slowly winning more, and then finally winning everything in 2003. So it's a fantastic culmination to a really interesting journey, of which many stories and snippets are in this book. And then after that, I had that dawning realization that I was 33 years old. I was an old has-been. I was washed up, and I've still got another 40 years to do. So I then wrestled with 4 or 5 years of transition from a pro sportsman mindset to the amateur world, to the amateur sport, to actually trying to find my place in the workplace. And over the course of time, begin to realize what my purpose was, what my values were, and found myself involved in an organization on the side of working for Sky and Daily Telegraph with an AI company called Affinity, where I've become Chief Customer Officer there for an organization that's 2,500 people and spread across the globe. Fascinating company, one I absolutely love working for. And in the process, in lockdown, with my great friend of Durham, scribbled a book that we're really, really proud of, that I know we're going to discuss over the course of the next hour. So that's hopefully a snapshot as to who I am. Thank you.
Thank you, Will. Ben?
Shall I do the same?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, hello, everybody. The first thing to say about my journey is I played rugby with Will when I was at Durham. I had some success at international level as a junior, but unlike Will, I didn't have the great question of do I go for it professionally or not. I wasn't good enough. And so I embarked on a business a company called Bartle Hegarty. Anyone old enough might remember the famous Levi's ads or Boddington's ads or Lynx ads, etc. And I had an amazing time there for 8 years. And then I was made CEO of BBH's business in Asia. And it looks like there might be a strong Asian representative here. So it'd be great to catch up with anybody from that part of the world later. And that was an extraordinary 4 years. It was my first run at being a CEO. The office was in Singapore, but all our clients were all over the region, which meant any given week I was in Jakarta or Manila or Mumbai. It was fascinating. And I was part of growing that business. We doubled that business in 4 years. We set up in India. We set up in China. We closed down in Japan, which is a story for another day. And I had 4 fascinating years of learning how to be a CEO, a little bit away from the mothership, if that makes sense, from the global control system of HQ of London. It was quite nice to get your first run at leadership a little bit out of the way. Then I came back in 2006, and then I did another 12 years as CEO of the London business, which is probably longer than any CEO should stay in post, I could argue. But I loved it. I had fascinating clients, lots of people who we interview and talk to through the book. But I think the thing that I started to learn during the course of my time watching a Carolyn McCall at ITV or a Dana Strong at Virgin Media or an Alan Jope at Unilever is these leaders were creating this really simple but really fascinating model for growth. They were all very curious individuals. They were, you'd call it growth mindset probably. So they were creating relentlessly growth for themselves. They were really obsessing about the growth for their first line, for their direct reports. And then they were making sure that that growth cascaded into the growth of the business. And it just seemed to me that growth of the leader, growth of the team, growth of the business was a terribly simple model for growth. And personal purpose is not a thing many people talk about, but I think during a period of reflection, I figured out my personal purpose was going to be about helping individuals and teams and businesses to grow. And once I'd sort of crossed that bridge, it felt right to set up my own business. So I set up the Growth House at the start of 2019. We're 3 years old now. We work with some extraordinary companies all over the world. And the beautiful thing about the project with Will, and I don't know if you believe this, but I definitely believe a strategy isn't strategy until it's written down. And the process of really crunching and distilling your intellectual property, really getting what you think about, feedback or challenge or setbacks written, and interviewing some of the smartest, most interesting people on the planet was not just a great fun exercise, but I think it's been really good for the business as well, because I find myself all the time in situations now where I'm asked a question and I kind of go, well, I know what we think about that. We've written about it. So that's me.
Thank you. Thank you both. I must say, I mean, I very much enjoyed reading your book. It's beautifully written. And also you have this nice combination of anecdotes and business learning. So it's very, very honest and authentic, the way it's written. And it also resonates with a lot of the things that we've discussed in the class about leading and managing people. And I would like to kick off the discussion with a nice quote from your book. So you say that much is written about leadership, but the skills of teamship are often underexplored and less understood. So what is teamship? What are the foundations of it?
Yes, so I'm sure an awful lot of this course has been about leadership. And of course, there are many types of leadership. There's thought leadership, there's leadership of people, there's leadership of operations and delivery. And I don't want to do any disservice to leadership. Of course, leadership is absolutely critical. But my observation when looking at the top of big companies, and I'm privileged to work with the AstraZenecas and the LinkedIns and the like, is the top of those companies, and I get to work with often the top 10 or the top 100, are packed with very fine leaders, people who have obsessed for many years on their leadership skills, but they're often actually not terribly good teammates. Because with leadership and with some of these big jobs, often comes a bit of ego, often it comes a bit of parochialism. So a lot of these companies have very, very capable individuals operating in often quite dysfunctional teams. And so the work that we tend to do, the world doesn't need another leadership book or leadership business. So we're trying to really hone in on the behaviours of elite and high performance teams, which is something that smart businesses want to get better at. And it is something as well where I do believe sport continues to be in many ways ahead of business. Sport is not ahead of business in everything. There are lots and lots of things that sport and sporting cultures need to get better at. But the generosity of a high performing team is definitely something that sport can teach business. And that's one of the things we've tried to do.
And one of the things I just follow up on that is I think we grow up and we're told you've got to be the leader, you've got to be number one. And part of the reason we love teamship actually is when you look at our difference, you might say, well, you're wearing blue jackets, you both went to Durham in 91, 94, you're very similar. Cognitively, we couldn't be more different in a sense that Ben underplays his role there, very humble, is fantastic strategist, fantastic man to operate at 36,000 feet, to look 10 years into the future, to understand where the business is going to go, what's the purpose, to sometimes slow down in order to speed up. Whereas I spent my life thinking that's what I wanted to be. And it was actually probably in my late 30s, I thought, actually, I'm just a really good teammate. I love winning together. I love finding my role. I love being the foot soldier in amongst the weeds. What's the challenge this week? It might be because I've lived in a professional sporting world which operates Saturday to Saturday. So I'm very results driven. Right, we've won this week. What do we do to make sure we win by more next week? We've lost this week. Right, we need to fix it. Go. So I'm much more of someone who is happy to be sometimes away from the limelight, allowing other people to bring their super strengths to the floor. And actually, sometimes I'm going to be lead singer. This is my moment. It now needs my super strength to come here and fix this situation. And I love that combination. And it might be, again, partly because I've grown up in and around teams and team sports. And I think rugby is one of the greatest metaphors for life. I mean, if you look across the shapes, the body sizes, the brain power, or sometimes actually removing the brain power is remarkably helpful. If you think what we asked some of those players to do, if they were smart, they'd probably say, no, I'm going anywhere near that ruck. So you need totally different levels of both IQ and strength and physical capacity. And that's why that teamship for me is so important. We have a metaphorical milkshake, a protein shake, or a shake each day. And each day, I mean, we came up on the train this morning and we have some old Durham alumni that we stay really tight to. And lockdown, this has got us through it. And we rode together on a Zoom call. And the guys back home had done a session this morning. So Benny arrives here today, jumps straight on the row machine and gets on. So we try and do physical health, some sort of physical health each day. We try and celebrate some mental health each day, but some sort of learning, some reaching out, some meeting people new, learning something new from each person you met. And then the other is to celebrate teamship. And I think doing things together collectively, there is nothing like it on the planet.
I think this links very well with what we discussed in the course about followership, right? That leadership is a little bit overrated, so we need to look at followers as well, and the combination of skills and characteristics you need in a team. You in the book you write that after the winning the World Cup, there will always be 3 words associated next to your name.
Yes.
A World Cup winner.
Yes.
But now there are 3 new words that you would like to highlight more: difference, togetherness, and growth,
Yeah.
which is basically the model in your book.
Yeah.
Would you like to say a few words about this 3-part model?
Sure, Ben, you go for that.
Yeah. So there are many types of ways of writing a book. it can be, you can tell a long single story. Back to Will and I liking a sort of structure. I guess part of my advertising training, which was you tell people what you're going to tell them, and then you tell them, and then you tell them what you've just told them. We wanted a really simple structure for the book, but it also seemed to us that everybody we interviewed, all of these absolute titans of business and of sport, kept talking about this similar formula for growth. And they didn't always use exactly the same words, but the ideas were always consistent. And they form the three parts of our book, which, as you've heard already, are celebrating difference. A great team of any form is a blend of different cognitive archetypes, different leadership archetypes, different ethnicities, genders, backgrounds, educational types, personality types. Collective wisdom comes from difference. So celebrating difference in any team is job number one. That is task number one of the leader. And whether you've inherited a team or whether you're building a team, we urge business leaders to think first, have I got enough difference baked into my team? And of course, there's two parts to difference. There is celebrating your own difference. People are often quite good at that. Critically, there's embracing other people's difference, which people are often not quite so good at. So if task number one is celebrating difference, task number two is forging togetherness, because it's an obvious thing to say, but if you have packed your team with difference, there's going to be disagreement, there's going to be challenge. There needs to be difference and there needs to be challenge. To get through that, you need aligned purpose. You need aligned set of behaviours. You need aligned goals and targets. So if job one is baking that team full of difference, job two is forging togetherness. And lots of the middle of the book is talking about the different tools and techniques businesses and high performance teams might use to forge togetherness. And then the final part of the equation, really, difference times togetherness equals growth, is how you then accelerate growth. If you're backing your team with difference, if you're forging togetherness, how do you then sustain elite cultures and continue to accelerate growth? So that in its simplest is the structure of the book and at the core of our hypothesis.
Just to pick up on the difference perspective, there's some great people interviewed. I always pick out a fantastic man called Jeff Dodds, who's now the COO of the combined Virgin Media O2 business. And he simplifies it. And we want this to be a book. We were so pleased when we saw some Post-it notes in your book. We want this to be that ability to highlight or post it, whichever way you do it, and keep coming back to it. And there's a great game called Top Trumps, a card game called Top Trumps, and that rates your strengths in particular areas. And he always looks around his team and he might say operational, technology and commercial, for example. And he'll say, am I scoring highly enough across all those aspects? Or am I totally over-indexed in one particular section? So I'm going to get an echo chamber when I go down that route because everyone's absolutely focused on this one particular avenue, but actually the delivery of excellence from us as an organization has to have been sure that when we're listening to our customers, we're covering off all those particular aspects. And so it's those simple tools that hopefully can be used.
Can I add a build on that as well, which is, I'm sure, the concept of an MBA is to give you real breadth of understanding. I would hope that's the case. The truth as your career develops is real success comes from becoming, with that base, with that breadth, becoming really outstanding at something. And the thing that always used to upset me when I would watch a career going the wrong way is it was often where an individual had stopped focusing on their strengths and they'd started to obsess about the things that they were not so good at. And the truth, of course, is high-performing teams are never teams packed with all-rounders. They're always teams with great big strengths and often real corresponding weaknesses and work on. So the thing I would urge you all as your career plays out is, of course, try to get better at the things that are weaknesses, but focus more energy on getting better at the things you're really, really outstanding at. those are the way the careers really take off, in my view.
Linking back, you've beautifully described this creation of, well, how do we work with difference? How do we bring people together? And there's a lovely quote in your book about how great teams aren't ones that don't disagree, but they actually know how to do that. When we think about diversity and looking at the classroom today, looking at Durham University more generally, can you describe the value and also how we facilitate that idea of disagreement for a positive development in teams?
I think one of the things, almost, you have to get slightly ahead of the curve on that ability to disagree. You have to work out what your team's methodology of feedback is. Mm-hmm. I think if we go straight into agreement and disagreement, it can often be taken out of context. It can focus on the individual rather than perhaps looking at the issue. And with it, you just lose a little bit of perspective and it becomes personal, negative. It can be talking about over-focusing and deliberating on our weaknesses, over-focusing on the opposition as opposed to going back to what we're good at. So I think being really clear and spending the time, again, to use that phrase, to slow down in order to speed up, to use some time as you're setting up your team to absolutely don't be embarrassed by writing down, creating a charter, teamship, a code of conduct. Many people call it social charter, whichever way you want to describe it. The name crosses many channels. To understand, how are we going to deliver feedback? When are we going to deliver feedback? I'm not a massive fan of a single annual report. I love high cadence, high turnaround feedback, honest transparency up front. Tell me what I need, where I can be better. And regular, and surrounding yourself with people who are happy to tell you that. You don't want to surround yourself with sycophants and yes men, and otherwise, again, they just assimilate into your voice. So once you've clarified that ability to make feedback, actually, agreeing and disagreeing is fun. It's the great part of business, creating a collision-rich environment. Agree, disagree, commit. And without sort of trivializing it, one of my favorite quotes is, the road of life is paved with flat squirrels who couldn't make a decision, right? And you don't want to be, I always say, don't be a flat squirrel. Talk about things, agree, disagree. But unless you've had those parameters, what actually happens is you walk out of rooms, business rooms, and cliques form. Go off in little silos, try and fix it themselves. Actually, they don't really believe in what's being said. And with a great team I was involved in, we had some of the most ferocious arguments about how we would try and beat the All Blacks in South Africa. We'd come up with an idea, and the double doors would blow open, we'd go and face the world's media, and not one of us would break. You could prisoner's dilemma, split us up, take us in different rooms, try and break us up. No. This is how we're going to do it. And that's, I think, in order to facilitate great disagreement, because it sounds like an oxymoron, but it's hugely critical to progress. You have to address how are we going to get there in terms of that delivery of feedback.
I think at the Growth House, we probably spend more time helping companies figure out their protocols and behaviours for disagreement than any other topic. How are we going to feed back to each other? What context are we setting? And in sport, again, this is done very well. We're all trying to win the World Cup. Our goal is very, very simple. So if I'm going to challenge you, it's not because I don't like you or I don't respect you, it's because I think you're doing something that's going to slow us down versus our goal. In business, often that work of setting that context, aligning that purpose isn't done. It's why purpose, in whatever way you frame it, is so terribly important. If we can lock arms and align around that purpose, then when I feed back to you, it's only ever because I'm trying to get our team and our business closer to that purpose that we've all signed up to. We have an expression that we like very much, which is go hard on the issue and go soft on the person. I think that distinction, we're going with passion at that thing there. I'm not attacking you. I might be attacking that because I don't think that's good enough versus our standards and our purpose. That's not the standard to which we aspire. And we need to have that out with each other because that managed tension is what creates excellence.
In the book, you emphasize a lot selection. So selecting for differences, selecting for complementarity. Something we discuss in the class is that many times, business leaders and managers do not have the luxury to select, and they have to lead the team they inherit. So how do you still forge this togetherness and growth in these kind of conditions?
Yeah, so a classic CEO entering a new job might give themselves 100 days. Why is 100 days a thing? Because, and some people are really structured about this. Dave Lewis talks about first 30 days, I'm only listening. Middle 30 days, I'm going to start testing out some hypotheses. Last 30, I'm going to start building alignment. The first thing a leader will be doing is assessing his or her team. It's not going to be possible to get where you need to get to. And the team, of course, you inherit because it's been built by your predecessor. The two extremes, in my experience, tend to be wrong. To arrive and go, right, I'm changing everyone, all the muscle memory goes, I'm new, everything that's gone on before I got here was wrong. And we see that sometimes. But likewise, being overly loyal and conservative to a team is also wrong. Dana Strong makes a lovely point now, the CEO of Sky, says, don't change your team too fast. Take a moment to just really understand what you've got. But I would argue you have to then start, once the purpose is aligned, once the mission is set, you have to then select accordingly. And if you break, we like things broken down terribly simply. Why should come first? Why are we here? What is it that we're trying to achieve? And only then, we would argue, do you get to who? Why, then what, then who, I think is the optimal order. Now, you never stop looking at selection. You never stop reviewing whether you've got your lineup quite where you need it for the mission. But it is appropriate to take a moment and just understand what value is that person giving? Do they match the ambition or the mission? Or have they become terribly important now because the mission has changed or the context has changed?
And just to pick up on that, it's one of those things that often when you come in new or you've been part of a team, it's slightly dysfunctional. Often you look at, you haven't clarified those whys. And if you haven't clarified those whys, then often people are a little bit unsure where they stand or what role it is or what it is they're trying to achieve. And then on the back of that, they can underperform. They might not hit their straps and be as good as they could be. Often when you come in as a new leader or you're trying to facilitate change within an organization, really being strict on yourself to nail those parameters that we talked about down. And then over time, consider and judge and view individuals with that framework, with those lenses. And I think one of the classic examples we had is it was a little extreme. Clive Woodward would take us to train with some extraordinary people. He'd bring some amazing business leaders in from outside to give us a different view on our same team. And when we trained with the Royal Marines, who are about the most elite sort of fighting force on the planet, and we had I would say wonderful time now, but it's because I'm looking back on it. It was, as you've seen SAS Who Dares Wins. It was basically sort of 6 weeks like that for 2 consecutive years. And at the back end of one year, when we thought, wow, we're becoming a really good team here, we're starting to improve. And the commandant of the Marines gives our leader, Sir Clive Woodward, a piece of paper, says, oh, look, I wouldn't go to war with those 6 players. So that dawning realization that actually we're not all aligned, we're not all collective around the holy grail that we're after. And then, but what the issue Clive had was, well, I've not actually measured them against anything. I've not necessarily laid down exactly what it is, what our purpose is, and what it is we're going to do in order to get there. So I can't just, P45 in terms of employment terms or drop them in terms of sporting terms. So we went away. Goes back, go away, really scribble down, filter, dilute, everything you need to make sure everyone really understands. Sign up to Code of Conduct, how we'd like to be treated, how we'd like to discuss feedback, all these things. And that will allow you to carry some mavericks. That will allow you, I hope, to allow potential underperformers actually to be find their passion, light their fire again, and go again. So it's almost... exactly as Ben describes. There's this assumption if a team is underperforming, change everyone. Actually, change your people, and if not, change your people.
Can I make one other point just on?
Yeah, sure.
You're very polite now. You're back at Durham Business School. It doesn't normally.
Would it be possible?
Yeah.
No, you'll all start jobs at some stage, and I'm presuming they're going to be quite senior jobs as your career plays out. I always used to think, and I saw this very precisely. I arrived in Asia. It was my first CEO job. I was 30. My leadership team were all 10 years older than me. They all knew the market better than me. It was very difficult in those early stages. And I could tell immediately, and I think this is quite common, I could break down my senior cohort into 3 groups. The people who were pleased I was there and were going to help me and could see opportunity for themselves. Obviously, they're fantastic. The people who weren't quite sure, who had their arms folded and were going to wait to see how I performed before they made their decision. And the people who were actively against me being there. They might have wanted my job. That always happens, by the way. There's always someone in your first line who wanted the job that you got. And I made the terrible mistake in my first CEO-ship of spending disproportionate energy on that last constituency. And they are the wrong constituency to spend your energy. You should be spending your energy with the people who want to help you, because the inconvenient truth is that last constituency have to go. That's my only contradiction to the take your time. There's a group of people whose stated ambition is, we don't want you here. They haven't read the situation very well, because you'll win and they won't, and they need to go. And you need to put your energy on the people who want to help you. And it's such a common error. I've got this really difficult person and they're eating up 70% of my energy. Sideline them, remove them. Don't give them your energy, because they will sap it and they will eat it.
My old boss sort of was a slightly humorous spin on that when he first stood up at the Danesfield House Hotel outside Henley and pulled back the flip chart, because we were flip chart people back in those days. And there it was, the mission to win a World Cup. And there was sort of the people at the front of the class, Martin Johnson's and Lawrence Dyer, finally, someone who's going to lead us to the hallowed turf, someone who believes in us. And at the back of the room, I don't like to throw people under the bus. There's certain players at the back going, it'll never work. This bloke won't last. Then there were the newbies in the middle, which included me. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm hearing all the naysayers at the back, and they're pretty cool, and they're quite good. And then those guys at the back, man, he's really tough. He's really, what do I do? So Clive always talks about, he spent the first 6 months trying to keep the middle group away from the back lot. Actually, the back lot, they're going. I can't keep them there, because, and so it's fascinating. Again, it's identifying those. And I think, and I hope I get your quadrant right. There are those people who get the culture and get the numbers, do their numbers. A star, we're keeping those two. Flip side of it, down the bottom end of the quadrant, don't get the numbers, don't get the culture, remove immediately. Then you get to an interesting selection. You get those people who get the culture but don't get the numbers. I'm going to spend time on them.
They get another chance.
They get another chance. Let's create an environment where we can get the best out of them. The harder ones, they get the numbers, they do the delivery, but they don't get the culture. And that's why we go back to the initial thing of when you first arrive. For those people, I don't think it's as easy as to sweep them out. For those people, you have to reset your parameters, reset your framework, understand how you would like it, co-written by them, so they feel like they have one hand on the steering wheel. And then after a certain amount of time, if they still don't do it, then I'm sorry, I'm a massive believer in a team environment. Those who go against the collective code of conduct, for me, don't stay.
You've both described your personal journeys and your learning and your development. There's a beautiful image around a sponge mentality that you've created. Could you say a bit more about that, and how can people cultivate that attitude to learning and development?
I was very lucky. I mean, we try and talk, a lot of the book is about removing luck and actually finding a way to hashtag beat the game in whatever form you play with the cards that you're dealt. I was really lucky. I was brought up by 2 educators. And my dad is called the Riddler. He was an England coach, so spoke in riddles. So I had to, it was almost like he was speaking in Greek to me at times. I had to take his word, understand what he wanted. So my whole life was spelt in a crossword. Literally, he's a king of crosswords. So my life has been about crossword and the use of language. My mum was 35 years as a maths teacher. And we'd go to Booths, and up north, Booths is sort of Tesco's and Asda, and there's Booths, which is sort of northern version of Waitrose, because we're aspirational in our family. We go to Booths, and we go to the cheese aisle in Booths, and we got lots of food. My mum would say, well, we've just bought 4 bananas at 27p, and we've got a bottle of orange juice for 38p. We came with a fiver. Bang! How much you got left? So on one side, I was living with a crossword, and the other, I was living with Carol Vorderman. So that, it, for me, inspired my desire to go and learn. Then throughout the course of my life, I align myself to people who are prepared to go out and look at things differently. And whether that be with the British Irish Line, someone like Sarah McGeechan, and with rugby with Clive Woodward, and then later on with life, some of the amazing women I've had the opportunity to work with at Affinity, and I talk about Sabine, some of our great clients, and people who are constantly wanting to learn. You know, I really do filter it all down because I like the use of humor without being overly self-deprecating and undercutting yourself. I've always said, the more you know, the more you laugh. And my son's like, what does that mean, Dad? I said, you sit at dinner tables with us as parents and we roar with laughter at something. You have no idea what we're doing. Now, it's because you actually have no knowledge of that subject. And my view is the more you continue to absorb and be that sponge mentality, then the more you laugh. The reality on a more formal nature of that is the butterfly effect of looking for potential improvement will take you down so many different tributaries that you would never, ever, ever have stumbled across if you hadn't been brave enough to give things a go.
Yeah, and I might connect, this might seem like a strange connection, but I'm just going to connect growth mindset. I'm sure you look at Carol Dweck and that kind of work. I'm going to make a connection with growth mindset and mental health, actually, and sort of well-being, because if you do a big job, if you run a company of any size or scale, at any given moment, something will be going wrong. You know, I was CEO for 16 years. There was never mind a week, there was never a day where something didn't go wrong. And if you allowed that thing that was going wrong to knock you, to blow you off course, and to damage your energy, because bear in mind, if you're leading 450 people, you need to be pumping energy and optimism into that organization. If you allowed that thing that was going wrong to knock you, you weren't going to be able to do that. And one of the things that I would always coach myself to do was focus my energy on the thing that we made a little bit better that day. If we can just make that thing a little bit better, I'm going to leave and go home head held high. And Dave Brailsford has spoken about the aggregation of marginal gains. Clive Woodward talked before Dave about doing 100 things 1% better. Satya Nadella, interestingly, CEO of Microsoft, said we're going to turn Microsoft from a know-it-all organization to a learn-it-all organization. The onus often is to show I'm the smartest person in the room. I know the answer to every question. I've got it all, and nobody is. The thing I would just urge you to focus on, if I can learn a bit more every day, if I can get a little bit better every day, if I look at my organization or my team and we just nudged it a little bit forward, not only will you get better and will performance improve, it will massively help your well-being, your mental health, and your resilience as well.
And it's really fun exploring things. I was going to use Cheryl Calder as a great example for us. And before, one of my favourite pub quiz questions used to be, before the All Blacks, which is the New Zealand rugby team, won World Cup winners medals in 2011, 2015. Before that, in the game of men's rugby, the first person that won back-to-back winners medals in the game of rugby was a lady, actually. She was called Cheryl Calder. And the brief history of Cheryl Calder would be another 1% that Clive was looking for. We were struggling to find a way to beat the very best teams. So who does he bring in? He brings this hockey coach from South Africa who stands on the hill at Pennyhill Park where the England team still train. And again, we welcomed everyone in. We weren't quite sure what Cheryl's job title or role was. And for 3 weeks, she watched us train. And then she presented back to us in a room pretty similar to this at Pennyhill Park. She said, wow, got some amazing athletes in here. Got some fast twitch fibers like a Jamaican sprinter. You've got lung capacity of an Ethiopian middle distance runner. You're all ignoring the most important muscle in your body. I'm thinking, it's biceps, deltoids, what is it? And Dr. Cheryl goes, that's the eye. The eye is a muscle. And I'm a vision coach. My name is Dr. Cheryl Calder. And if you'll allow me to work with you, I will try and help you to improve your peripheral vision, to be able to see things quicker. And once you see things quicker, you can communicate that to other people and you find a different way to win. And from that, we then realized what we were doing by inviting Cheryl in. We started to understand we were very narrow in terms of our play. So we came up with an acronym. Everyone loves acronyms. She gave us the acronym. And I promise you, if you played against us for 3 years, you'd have been hearing us shout CTC, CTC the whole time. A really simple call for us to. And that meant, for those of you who have children or have played much sport, most people congregate around the ball. It's called honeypot. Ball's over there. Got a mum's on TV. I don't even be near the ball. That's actually, back to the maths, a rugby pitch is 70 metres wide, 100 metres long, 7,000 square metres. Why are we spreading out in a bunch? So if the first 2 or 3 people were doing those jobs, after they're looking after their swimming lane there, and actually the call came, CTC, you stop, bang, look up at the crossbar in front of me. Stop looking there. Scan the touchlines, communicate the space, crossbar, touchline, communicate. Now you'll say that's a really, really narrow sports angle. I say that's the boring you need to have in any business, whether you're 114 caps, or you've been in a business for 16 years, or it's your first day. You need to be given the authority and the ability and the freedom to be able to spot opportunity, communicate that to others, and then it's a lot easier. And I say that from experience, playing the South Africans, who England are playing Disate. You don't want to be narrow against those guys. It really hurts. So not only does Cheryl help you sort of grow your own ability to see space and create tactics and strategies for that, it was also a great tool for the cowards in the team like myself.
And again, just using...
And why did she get back-to-back winning medals? Sorry, Ben. She got removed by England in 2004-05. Clive Woodward left, and the classic, what Ben said, sweep everyone out, out with the old, in with the new. And Jake White, the South African rugby coach, rang up and said, Cheryl, would you like to come home and work with us? So there she was in 2007 winning the World Cup. And no one talks about Cheryl. Wow. We talk about Cheryl. We love Cheryl. There are no photos. You wouldn't find who Cheryl was. And yet she's this most extraordinary woman who just literally allowed us to look at things with a different lens, opened our eyes, and took us from a reasonable team to a great team. And I like to give her more than 1%, but she was absolutely one of those people, one of those organizations that we were prepared. I know the question's back to that growth mindset. We were prepared to welcome into our arena and say, give us what you got. We're in.
And just a business point, I think that's relevant here is vision is a thing that many business people are scared of. You know, how do I look into the crystal ball and give you a vision? And I think one of the great mistakes for leaders is to believe that vision is an exercise in crystal ball. Vision is about seeing things earlier than anybody else. It's not about seeing something that doesn't exist yet. It's spotting a consumer behavior, an opportunity, a little piece of data that no one has spotted yet, and seeing where the consumer might be going next and betting on it. Vision is not imagining in a crystal ball where the future might be going. And without wanting to embarrass Will, his superpower on a rugby pitch was he could see space and gaps and opportunity before anyone else could. And that for me is a really, I find a reassuring way of thinking about vision, because particularly in those biggest jobs, you are asked to provide a vision. And I definitely couldn't see the future, but I was quite good at spotting where clients or the consumer might go next.
I'm mindful of time, and we need to allow some time for the audience to ask questions. So maybe like 2 final questions from us. So one question is about crucibles and difficulties and setbacks, especially early in life, but throughout your career as well. I remember in the book you write, Will, that you were told early on that rugby is not for you.
Yeah.
And you should think about doing something else. So how do you persevere when everybody else is saying, oh, you cannot do it? How do you keep on going?
Yeah, look, that's a fabulous question. I'll try and distill the answer in. It's because for me, the rugby was such a passion. I was an amateur. I was Tuesday and Thursday night. We trained in front of car. We're going to see the Durham University team later, the men's and the women's team. If someone had forgotten to turn the meter on, We literally parked the cars down at Maiden Castle and turned the headlights on in order to be able to train. I still train now. I'm nearly 50 and I go Tuesday and Thursday to my local rugby club. So I think in life, that ability to maintain that burning fire, to actually, to what do I love doing? And actually, even if someone says, I might not be able to go there, but you know what? I'm just going to keep pushing for base camp. And actually, a lot of the friends describe me a little bit like Donkey from Shrek. It's just I kept turning up. I kept turning up and about, pick me, pick me, pick me. And there's an element of that which I think in all walks of life you have to maintain it. There are of course difficult times that knock your confidence, but actually it's not about surrounding yourself with sycophants or people who are saying, "No, you're the greatest, you'll be fine." Actually, it's about understanding how far can I go, maybe reset my parameters, but just trying to be the best version of myself. And if you do that, you'll be surprised how far it can take you.
Thank you.
So same thing. Setbacks are part of life. Setbacks are part of business. Loss is part of life. Nobody leads a business or a home career without challenges. Some of us avoid some of the more awful things, but how we respond, what we learn, what scar tissue and muscle memory we create is part of success. They're just two parts of the same coin. So success and failure, I mean, this is kind of cliched stuff, but setbacks are a critical part of every success we ever enjoyed. Wouldn't have enjoyed that success or valued or cherished it if we hadn't been through the pain and the
And if you can maintain
anxiety.
your calmness and not believe you're 11 out of 10 when you win, or you're not 1 out of 10 when you lose. I mean, Master Uruguay from Kung Fu Panda doesn't get enough airtime. He really doesn't.
I hope he's on the syllabus, by the way.
Yeah, by the way, Kung Fu Panda is the font of all MBA business knowledge. He goes, there is no good news, there is no bad news, there is just news. Until Tylo escapes, of course. But that's that whole purpose. And where I was with the team we had, we lost a game against, it was 98 France, and 99 was Wales, and 2000 was Scotland, and 2001 was it. One game a year, and we get labelled as these chokers. We constantly had these wonderful people at the top of our organisation going, it's just part of our journey. It's part of where it is we're trying to get to. We weren't grateful that it had happened, but it allowed us to reframe, re-index, where are we, what do we need to do better? And no team, and Ben's talked about it from a business perspective, no team remains unbeaten ever in sport. And it's just trying to mitigate and trying to reduce those numbers. But they happen. You get beaten and you got to work out why.
Shall we open up for audience?
I think it would be great. So questions for Will and Ben? And also, yes, please.
I have two questions. The first question goes to Mr. Fennell. How do you define female leadership in sports industry? And my second question goes to Mr. Greenwood. Is you have changed many careers, and how do you fit yourself in the different organization culture? Is there anything that you learned from being a rugby player that helped you at that point?
So I've worked for 24 years, and advertising suffers from the same issues around gender pay gap and female representation that lots of businesses do, but there is increasingly stronger representation. My managing director in Asia was a brilliant woman called Christine Ung. My successor in London is a brilliant woman called Karen Martin. I find it very difficult to draw discernible characteristics and archetypes that I perceive as female leadership archetypes or male leadership archetypes. I've known men who are terribly nurturing and caring, if that's one of the cliches, and some female leaders who really aren't. So I'm very uncomfortable using gender to archetype leadership. I do believe, along with ethnicity, leadership type, cognitive type, I want all of those types of difference in my leadership team, but I'm very reluctant because I have no evidence for there being a bespoke or specific leadership archetype that is female. And I hope that's not a cop-out. It's data, for me, it's data-based and it's anecdotal.
Well, it's because I used to work for sports media property in Asia, and I found it's very a male-dominated role,
Right.
especially comes to decision making. And yeah, maybe it's just a culture thing that was in Asia.
The line we've sort of talked about a little bit and find it sort of best. We believe that talent is equally distributed, but opportunity is not. And through this book, we hope that those who lead, those have the opportunity to lead, it's about lead, learn, and grow like a champion, will understand that and take that on board and hopefully continue to make steps to get more different perspectives on the same challenge. And with it, understand it will come from many different angles. I hope, does that go some way?
Yeah, I will definitely buy the book.
Oh. I've also, by the way, I've also believed, and this is my foot soldier aspect, and Ben might have a slightly different view. I've always believed grow your business one customer at a time, and I have done it one customer at a time. That to me, you know what, we can go. The question to me was, how did I take some of the stuff I valued in sport into business? What I find really interesting is we can learn in sport so much from business, from tapping into the IP and these extraordinary leaders we have. But I also believe a lot of businesses take for granted and don't do a lot of things the sports teams do. Sports teams are really strong on really defining what gets the best out of me. How would I like to be treated? If I'm your lecturer, I would like to be able to check in and check out. I would like to put investments in withdrawals. I need to lean on you sometimes. I need to come in on and say, guys, I'm a 4 out of 10 today. I'm going to give you the content. I need your energy. So that openness and that transparency, written down, articulated, but actually sort of put down so I can look and go, okay, who am I in with today? Who are the 10 people? What are the notes I need to hit? How do they like to be spoken to? What sort of work do they like to do? And I think that time taken away from the actual content allows a team to flourish. And I get that from a sports team. And in the organization I'm working in at the moment, we're working really hard and we're making real progress and seeing real benefits in the bottom line on actually not working, not thinking about the AEI today, but thinking about the people behind the A. And there's a lovely man I've sort of got to know over the years called Razor Robertson. And he's this amazing coach in New Zealand. Whenever they win, he breakdances. It's worth Googling. It's called Razor Robertson breakdancing. Have a little look. He's an absolute rock star. He's a surfer dude. And he goes, Greens, it's really simple. Get the heart, get the player. Get the heart, you get the person. Get the heart, get the employee. And if you can do that, but the only way you can do that is to give some vulnerability occasionally, to come in and say, do you know what, I'm really struggling with this. Can you help me? That old archetype of leadership being superwoman, Superman coming in, this is what we do, is gone, I believe. And actually those that put some skin in the game with their team, understand at certain times they are going to have to make big decisions and they won't always be popular. But if you're connected to people, and I hope something that comes out of COVID is empathy and kindness. And I believe it. I'm seeing that a lot more.
The second question was also interesting, if I may follow up.
Sure.
I mean, you're the
I thought I'd answered it.
of career reinvention.
Yeah. Yes.
So you've changed, from being a trader to professional rugby player, broadcaster, journalist.
Yes.
AI. So what drives you for these reinventions?
Necessity is the mother of all invention, I believe. So it goes back potentially to what I talked about, the next challenge.
Yes.
I couldn't see the present faster than others in terms of rugby going professional. And then on the back of that, what was quite interesting was I found myself under-equipped coming out of professional sport to go back into the commercial world. I'd spent 10 years, not really. I was really lucky. A lot of players I came to Durham and got picked up in economics, although my dad always said that I read rugby and played economics at Durham University. But I had my degree, I'd done my forms, I'd done my job interviews, I'd lived on my own, I'd lived in the city, I'd had the discipline to go to work and turn up. I know that sounds strange, but a lot of sports people, they finish and they really struggle with a lot of mental health on that perspective. And so when I finished, that old world that I'd inhabited, I didn't feel was quite what it was. So I fell into broadcasting and got invited back. And then slowly but surely, like with all things in sport, there's an evolution in sport. There's a new set of voices who are wonderful in terms of the BTs and the Amazons. And as you get to 50, it's like way slightly from the older gen. And about 4 or 5 years ago, 5 or 6 years, I feel as I learned and I was seeing the present faster, got aligned to this wonderful organization. So actually goes back, that opportunity, when it comes, you go all in. And that's where I found myself. So on occasion, it's been a little bit, you only find out where you're going when you get there. So there's a little bit of hindsight about it. But if you look at the heart of it, I've just tried to be the best journalist when I was the best journalist. Who can I learn from? Now in AI and working as a customer officer, how can I be the best at that? And just go and find people who are Jedis at it, who are the best in the world at it, and then take their ideas and try to mold them and make them mine into a sort of coherent argument.
At burning fire, the passion.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't take it. You can. My energy is, it's what I love, but I get that from other people as well.
Thank you. Other questions?
Yeah, so you spoke about high-performing teams. Everybody likes to work in a high-performing team because they are known for victories and they keep on winning. But when they come at a loss, that's when team is really defined.
Yeah.
And you normally find 1 or 2 people who do not take feedback for the loss. How do you, as a leader at that time, react to it? And let's say if you're a follower in that team and you want to give feedback to a team person in that team and that person is not accepting, how do you react when the leader is not giving the leadership, the right leadership at that time?
So a couple of things on that. The first is most great leaders I observe focus first on performance. They make that their goal. Because if you're really sweating performance, you end up winning an awful lot more than losing. Sometimes you can perform badly and win. Sometimes you can perform really well and lose. The reason your wash up and review mechanisms are so important is a good leader and a learning organization will take that moment after the win and have a really tough review. So Clive would say, Will's team would often have their toughest appraisals after their wins, because actually the group was more open to feedback in those moments. So the first point I would say, and there's famous books written about, the scoreboard will take care of itself. Sweat performance, make your goal and your focus performance and the results will follow. That's the first point. And then the second point, because it's highly connected to that, put in place mechanisms for review, analysis, and learning. So the special forces, for example, one of the people we talk to is a special forces operator. After every operation, there is a hot debrief, and then 24 hours later, there is a cold debrief. So you come in off operations, you're exhausted, all you want to do is sleep, but the very first thing that happens is a review. Who saw what? What could we have done better? Then you rest, and you come back with a bit more distance and objectivity, and then you review again. So that would be my 2 pence worth. Focus on performance, but also put in place your review and analysis mechanism. And if the leader isn't doing that, propose that they should.
Perfect. I think we have time for one final question. Oh, yes. Yeah.
So I think actually this picks up on Ben's point about your first CEO role and then not necessarily spending the right time on the right constituency group. So this person asks how to use organizational politics to advance your sort of good cause or your aim, and how not to get caught up at the wrong end of the stick in organizational politics.
So I wish this wasn't the case, but every organization has politics. I think we're kidding ourselves if we believe there is an organization without politics. But politics is culture. Politics is managing stakeholders. I would go back to purpose. If you can align around purpose and you start running into obstacles that undermine the purpose, that challenge the purpose, then what you're able to do is not only challenge that individual, but you can potentially call them out. Remember, we agreed we're trying to do X. We agreed the way we were going to disagree with each other was Y. And I feel like you've done neither of those things. We agreed that in the room and you've gone around a back channel. That's not okay. Because it's not according to the principles or the code or the purpose that we've agreed. So back to why do I believe code of conduct, purpose, how we're going to behave matters so much, is it becomes almost like a yellow card. In sport, you can give a player a warning. It's not a red card, but it's a warning. And those code of conducts are really helpful for going, hang on a minute, that's not what we agreed. And the leader, you don't want to be running to the leader every 5 minutes, but if you can't get that response from your teammate, you are absolutely legitimate in escalating to the leader and asking for help. But if you can root your disagreement in what we agreed, you're going to find navigating the politics of every organisation a little bit easier, I would argue.
I think it's time to
It is
conclude,
time,
right?
sorry.
So
Can't keep these guys from the lemon chicken. I've seen it in the restaurant. Looks delicious, guys.
So Ben and Will, it has been a privilege, has been thoroughly enjoyable. So thank you for having this
Pleasure.
conversation with us. Thank you, the students and everyone who joined this conversation, and also our wonderful alumni relations team for making this possible. So thank you so much.
Thank you.